Welcome to our study in the book of Psalms. We will be looking at Psalm 92 today, and this is titled the Sabbath Psalm. This has everything to do with Sabbath worship, and the introduction will give us some very interesting insights. I like to share each time as we begin a psalm with the outline of the entire book. And even in our English King James Version or whatever version you have, the book of Psalms, when you, for instance, begin verse 1, it probably up above says book 1, 1 to 41. That might be and probably is all that it says. But in the Hebrew Bible, the breakdown and the thought is that each of the 5 books that make up the book of Psalms has a parallel to the first 5 books of the Bible. And then those books have a parallel and a running parallel of a theme. So it is, for instance, Genesis is about man. As we get down to where we are in book 4. It's about numberings. It's about the children of Israel wandering. So it has a lot to do about worship and how to live and get along and obey God and do what's right. So part of living is walking with God and observing the Sabbath and things that families should do. We do not know who wrote the psalm. There's no one's name. Also, there are no musical instructions written. This is a psalm that was written for a special day, the Sabbath. Instructions given for this psalm at the very front, at the pretext, is, quote, a psalm or song for the Sabbath day, unquote. So we are told the reason for this psalm. And even today, Psalm 92 is sung to begin the Sabbath on Friday after sunset. The Jews will sing this as they begin their Sabbath. Psalm 92 joins 29 and 93, as well as 95 through 99, in being Sabbath psalms. In fact, we looked at 29 long ago, but 93 is next, right behind this, and in a sense, they join together. And when we get to 93, we'll share more on that. The outline of the psalm, and this is not a long psalm, give thanks and sing praises. Then we will be looking at great works and a senseless man. And comments are coming through those verses also. Then it ends with a good God and that the saved, God's people, are exalted. And so we have sort of bookends. We have good things on the front end and on the back end of this psalm. And also in the middle, we have the great works of God. But yet the question gets asked, with everything that God has done for humanity, how can man turn their back? And specifically to the Jews, for all that God has done and is doing for his people, how can someone who is a child of Israel, an Israelite, an Israeli today, a Jew, how can they not see God and see his plan and see his works and understand his word? So let's get right into this psalm. It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord and to sing praises unto your name, O Most High. The word good is in the Hebrew it's a good translation. Pardon the reuse of the word again, but good can also mean to be pleasant. To be, it's a pleasant thing to give thanks. It just lifts our spirits. And when we come across the word Lord, that is Jehovah in the Hebrew, which means the existing one. God is the existing one. Oh, there is no beginning, there is no end. It's just fluid. Then the word name carries a very, very important, it just has a loaded meaning to it in a good way. It's a powerful word. And so it says it's a pleasant thing to give thanks to Jehovah and to sing praises unto your name. Name is not just a name, Lord, Jehovah. There's a reputation that goes with that. When I was brought up, Dad always taught us, he said, look, you're a baker. With that goes great expectations. You don't want to hurt the family name. You want to live right. You want to do right. And so you want to honor, a way to honor our father and our mother is that we have a good reputation, that my last name is Baker, and we uphold that, and we keep that good name. And that gets taught on to the children. And so with the word name, God has a great reputation. God has a great fame. And he says, the psalmist goes on to write and says, within that name, O Most High. And in the Hebrew, that's Elyon. And that God is the Most High. Moving on, to show forth. Here's how we can praise God. Here's how we can lift him up. Here is part of the name of God and his fame and his reputation, to show forth your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness every night. The word forth means to let it be known of your loving kindness, of your faithfulness. Really, loving kindness can be translated faithfulness too, and then faithfulness can be translated steadfastness. But it's fine how it is written, that God, to just let it be known of God's loving kindness in the morning, let it be known at night of God's faithfulness before you go to bed. In Deuteronomy 6, the Lord commanded the fathers of Israel to rehearse every day and every night the great things the Lord had done with their families. And so here is that simple outline of what Dad can share. In the morning, talk about God's loving kindnesses, God's faithfulness. In the evening, talk about how God is steadfast, and he always upholds his promise. He's faithful in his promises. So that's a great outline of what to rehearse with your family. Upon an instrument of 10 strings, upon the psaltery, upon the heart with a solemn sound. 10 strings is a harp, a psaltery is like a harp, also a smaller one, a lute. And when it talks about psalm, it's a resonating music. It's echoing. As it plays, it just vibrates and resonates after you've stopped playing. And it gives opportunity to think back of that psalm and the words that have been sung to it. And here's some of the stringed instruments that were used in the Bible times, and it even made the coinage. For you, Lord, have made me glad through your work. I will overcome or triumph in the works of your hands. So he says, we will be overcomers. We will get the victory as we understand the works of your hands. And the way that this verse is written, it puts the emphasis on God's work, not upon you've made me glad, but through your work you've made me glad, and through the works of your hands I will triumph. So you see where the emphasis belongs on this. It's not what I'm doing, it's what I am able to do because of what God is doing. Then we see great works in senseless man. O Lord, how great are your works! And it is an apostrophe. And your thoughts are very deep, or very profound. And deep is emphasized greatly in this verse. And so stop and think about this. Lord, your works are great. And it goes right along with verse 4, talking about God's works. But now it reverts to God's thoughts and speaks of that your thoughts, Lord, are deep, actually deeper than anything we can fathom. A brutish or a stupid man knows not, neither does a fool understand this. I put a reference in here of Isaiah 1:3 that actually Isaiah and the Lord calls Israel stupid for walking away from God. And the word knows here, that a stupid man, a dull man, does not see the point or the purpose. And therefore, I'm just ignoring it. It doesn't matter. But it does matter. Because a fool is a fool, or someone who's very arrogant that thinks they don't need God, they don't need anybody else, that they're just, it's all about them. And so a stupid man doesn't see the point or purpose of God's hand at work. And neither does an arrogant man understand or get it. When the wicked spring, or the wicked or the criminal, spring as the grass, shoot up all around us. And when all the workers of iniquity, the workers of trouble, the workers that bring sorrow, do flourish or sparkle or shine, they get all the attention and all the glory, and their way must be right. It is that they shall be destroyed forever. Wow, that's their bottom line. In the culture we live in today, evil is good and wicked is right. And it's interesting that when someone is in prominence or an office that they are this, that of course they beget after their own kind. And so those that have remained silent out of fear of propagating evilness and wickedness and sinfulness, iniquity, they remain in the shadows. All of a sudden, when they have a mouthpiece out there, then they just spring up everywhere. But God says they will be destroyed. But you, Lord, are most high forevermore. For lo, your enemies, O Lord, for lo, your enemies shall perish. All the workers of iniquity will be scattered. Then we get to see about a good God, and the saved are exalted. But my horn shalt thou exalt like the horn of a unicorn. I shall be anointed with fresh oil. The horn is the shofar, and exalt means to lift up. But a note that I need to add is that to exalt the horn, or my horn, is figurative, and it means to have renewed vitality and power. And so after wickedness rears its head, it sort of just, it diminishes those that want to live right. It's almost like roles are reversed when it doesn't have to be. But because that's how it is often, the Lord tells us right here, and the psalmist says, look, my strength and my vitality and my power will come back. And I'll be anointed with fresh oil. I'll be back on my A game again. Unicorn pops up here, of course, and we all have a picture of what a unicorn is in our minds. We see them in books and cartoons on TV. We don't know exactly what this is. Right here, there are people scholars that have stated this or that, but we don't know exactly. Also, I've also read that they may have existed as we see them today, but they are extinct. Animals have become extinct. But regardless, we need to understand that this is not about a unicorn, but it's about that the Lord is our strength and will renew us and give us power. My eye also shall see my desire on my enemies, and my ears shall hear my desire of the wicked that rise up against me, The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. And it is in Lebanon that was noted for their cedar trees. That's where the wood came from for the temple and many of the major construction projects in Israel and in Jerusalem. And trees are often pictured as a strong man or strong men. And so this fits in very well about growth and about solidity and being strong. Those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. And the house of the Lord is referring to the temple here. And the courts of God would be the courts out and around the temple and in that area. And it says those that, really, here's the application of catching this. Those that plant themselves around God's work and God's people. And today, for a Christian, it's the church. We should plant our roots at the church and put it there. And I'll even use the word hang out. That's where our friends are. That's where our fellowship is. That's where our support team is, our group. And today is no different from the Old Testament era and this time is no different than from today. People needed to go to the temple. The temple needed to be the heart and the center of their civilization, of their town, and it was, for the most part. So that's what this verse is all about. They shall still bring forth fruit in old age. They shall be fat and flourishing, to show that the Lord is upright or straight or correct, and I'll add in everything. He is my rock. Actually, it is in the Hebrew a rock cliff, that meaning up high. That he's just not a rock sitting there in the middle of a field or a rock part of a mountain range. It is talking about a hiding place high up in the rocks. And there is no unrighteousness in him. There is no injustice in him. God will always judge right and rightly, and he will judge in righteousness. So if you see just around us a culture that is very much like Sodom and Gomorrah, very much like Las Vegas, very much like a lot of places today. That's the culture. But understand, God has not changed. God is still strong. God is still our refuge. God is still our salvation. And God blesses the man and the woman, the child of God, that stands steadfast in him. And God will bless them. So thank you for listening, and I invite you, of course, to hang with us as we get into Psalm 93 next. And this is sort of like a follow-up. And we'll be looking at some Sabbath Psalms here going into Psalm 100. So God bless you. Thank you. If we can help in any way, email me, and be glad to pray for you in any way we can. Also, if you have a question or you'd just like a hard copy of this lesson or any of the Psalms, just email me and I'll send you the Word document back for free. Thank you again.